microphone on? Can you hear me anyway?
Yes.
I don't have to talk into the microphone. Thank you all for coming to this first event in the Department of English, Rhetoric and Writing's Creative Writing Program's reading series. A couple things before we start. If you have a cell phone, you can make sure that that is turned off. Following the reading also, Professor Sxporluk would be happy to take any questions. And we have books for sale, and she would be happy to sign those as well. I'm extremely honored now to introduce to you Larissa Sxporluk. Ms. Sxporluk is Associate Professor of Creative Writing and Literature at Bowling Green State University and has published 3 books of poetry: Dark Sky Question, winner of the Barnard New Women Poets Prize; Isolado, winner of the Iowa Poetry Prize; and her most recent, The Wind, Master Cherry, The Wind. She's also the recipient of several fellowships, including one from the National Endowment for the Arts. Her poems have appeared in numerous journals and anthologies and have twice been selected for the annual Best American Poetry Series. I'm especially pleased to have Larissa here, having followed her career from the publication of Dark Sky Question, a truly stunning debut that made apparent here was a major new voice in American writing. Dark Sky Question introduced her hallmark style, highly concentrated poems marked by an intelligent intensity and propelled not by a transparent linear narrative, but by repetition and pause, by sudden shifts, apparent gaps in meaning, where in fact the ultimate meaning lies. In Orchard of Far Worlds, for example, she writes, "This is the land of small rain. Because it is round, I still need you." The language of logic is preserved here, but so is the gap in explanation. This gap is the step, a stepping off, that brings together reader and writer to enact discovery. In one poem, the word riddle in the phrasing, "the riddle of such brief light," underscores the dynamic nature of language common to Sxporluk's work, as the word riddle morphs between meanings, suggesting both noun and verb, the unexplained and the act of puncturing. Language itself drives these poems, their powerful sense of compression and surprise, demonstrating that our experience, including the experience of language, is indeed shaped more by riddle than epiphany, more by question than by answer. The sum of things is the least of things, she writes. Though the ultimate nature of reality is unknowable, Sxporluk's poems remind us that this fact does not forestall urgency. In Euphoria of Rope, she writes, "The sky persuades the earth to keep her burning center undisclosed, but the desire to know remains." We can never fully understand ourselves, each other, the nature of reality, yet there is nothing more important than our drive to do so. There are so many ways to go and not see and lose the feeling of the thread, she tells us. We will never reach the fabled center, but to lose the desire to follow that thread would mean losing everything, including ourselves. The unknowable world before us demands our attention, deserves our concentration, as do these wondrous poems. Please join me now in welcoming Larissa Sxporluk.
Thank you, Sandra. That's beautiful. Thank you. I mean, it's beautiful to hear beautiful things about you. It won't go to my ego. My ego is really damaged. You'll see. Get all my stuff from interstate. Anyway, it's wonderful to be here. You have an absolutely gorgeous campus. You should just lie around in it as much as you can. Where I come from, it used to be a swamp, so we have rat feces epidemics. I'm not kidding. So just the idea of being able to lie around outside is a treat. Not that I did any of that today, but I wanted to. Sandra wouldn't let me. I skip lunch and just lie around. No. Okay, so I'm going to start with Dark Sky Question. And this first poem that I'm going to read is called Secrets of Jove. And my husband, who's your one spouse, can never not be influential. So his take on things is very minimalistic. According to him, this is my only good poem. Well, he has this philosophy that really, I mean, like even Dante just had a few good lines. And so I guess compared to Dante, I'm doing pretty well. It's just very severe. He finds that idea of just being able to write and write and write and continually make something important. It's just insane. So here it is. A lot of pressure on it now, huh? Secrets of Jove, and Jove being Zeus, and Zeus being, kind of the bad guy, Greek mythology. He's always an exciting subject. All he had to do was look down, and the river would start churning. A little pain at first on the surface, a little restraint. And he would swim through the weeds, and the weeds would accommodate his motion, bowing all over, the way a face conforms to the sun by reddening. And his strokes were like long knives that left scars on the life underwater. And as everything fell into place, it was a place exhausted by terror, fertility barely breathing, the air too haunted. He waded out to his knees where her hair still fought, and threw it as hard as he could. There was no more moon, only space in the waves, like a vow unmade, or a cage whose interior blue. He never said why that was good. Maybe it's because it's brutal. Anyway, so that poem leads into libido, which makes a certain amount of sense. And it's really kind of interesting. It's the same poem, really, but same poem, so why am I reading it? Well, there are a couple of, it's in terses. Okay, libido. A hand has her hair. Don't move, don't cry out. The odd foliage is shining in the light. With the stealth of a wheel, he rams against her knees from behind. She falls back into his purpose, which is hers, to be provided for, to find her insides altered and grow huge. But he runs off, done with her mouth, leaving her dazed by the waste of that kind of love. She asks around, asks how. Where do we feel to find who we are? Watches some poppies freeze in an orgy of plants, their cold red gaze grown silent. She listens to parrots, true inner birds, never at rest, into whose breasts the world blows pleasure, shaking like nests full of Indian bees, to screams, to sing. See, I used to be into all that kind of violent sexual tension stuff. But married life will take that right out. Okay, my married life, okay. Yeah. Now it's like, what do you want to watch, honey? That's all true. Okay, so, let's see now. Now I think I'm going to shift into the more spiritual. This poem is called Holy Ghost, and I had a strange experience with this one because back then I wasn't very responsible. I mean, these were written a pretty long time ago. And so I would just I loved reading the Bible for inspiration. Just the language of the Bible is so bizarre. And so I found these lines and I italicized them in the poem, but I didn't put a note saying this is from, Job 1, whatever. And then, like many, many years later, I was going back to the Bible for inspiration, and I saw these lines, and it was like this moment of like, hey, that's mine. Like, wait a minute, you stole that from me, God. That was just really embarrassing for me. So I guess if this were to ever be redone somehow, I would have to just admit that these really did come from the Bible. There are two lines. The horse whose neck is clothed with thunder, and then the voice that shakes the wilderness. So I'm fessing up. Holy Ghost, all my thoughts of you are good ones. The horse whose neck is clothed with thunder, they are good ones. The voice that shakes the wilderness, good ones. I think about how, if I could wake up, I could go to your light. How that would be good if I could wake up. But where I am is so large. You are a fly. You are impossible. But where I am is so large, like a dark saying, repeating. Where I am is repeating. I don't know where it begins. Where I am is the same. But the light just takes you away, and I am the only one here. It's mine, like a dark saying. Hide them in the dust together. Bind their faces in secret. You see how it's mine? You see how I try to wake up? The horse whose neck is clothed with thunder. They were good ones. I am the only one here, a giant asleep on a damp floor. I am on the floor of my invention, my forest of dark saying, the Lord shall hiss. My forest is always the same. I am asleep on the damp floor. My lids are down. Your face is a secret kiss. I think I stole the words from this too. It's italicized here though, so can't sue me, haha. Just kidding. All right. I am religious. I'm religious. I mean, I'm not that religious. I believe in God. How about that? Okay. So this is a poem I was telling Sandra earlier today that Charles Wright. I guess when was Charles here? A couple years ago.
3.5 years ago.
3.5 years ago. Okay. He'd been my teacher at Virginia, and he had wanted to use one of my poems in this correspondence with the poet Charles Simic, just as a kind of a point of discussion. And I remember telling my husband, well, he's my boyfriend then, so it was exciting then. And I remember saying, so he wants to use my poem, and his response was, you should pay for it then. So I went to class the next time, and I said, okay, you can use it for $1,000. He said, forget it. So he wasn't interested in that at all. So this poem, and Much Read, is not worth $1,000. And that's, I guess, what it means now. The title is Ignis Fatuus, which is the Latin way of saying will-o'-the-wisp, which is just that phosphorus grows over bogs. And then it's also used to kind of mean illusions or fancy, things that just kind of dance around in a way. Ignis Fatuus. I can't cope in the bog light. I was made big and not great. Moths swarmed in from the plains, wings of all sizes. And to think that I did the same, half cry of a star, whose boundaries were torn. Then your special way of walking on the peels. Beautiful, voiceless things were boiled alive. For 3,000 days, I asked you to stop it. Little girls are scarcer now. There won't be a second bride. Who could go on trying? Victims form a line even God doesn't know. Their desire for home, snuffed out like a phantom. I'll catch silk in the night wind instead. Narrations of our baby. Part of the sky is all of the sky. The rest is waste. Oh, I remember now. Okay, that was inspired by, we had to, for the workshop, we had to write about an art piece. And I remember we had to sit there for days in the museum until we really felt the thing. And my thing was this huge wooden statue. That's what I remember. And it was called The King's Bride. But that doesn't interest you now, does it? Didn't really fit. That was I was made big and not great. Okay, never mind. This poem is called Solar Wind. And this is another, so many of these poems remind me of being in a class. And I just think that the workshop, people criticize it, but in the end, it's just, I think it's a great thing. It's, nobody criticized Sandra's. I'm just saying, actually, they criticized mine. So, no, you just kind of hear this, kind of this bad rap in the air that they're producing all these poems and poets, and how can everybody be a poet? And, it's just a big factory, big poetry factory. And, that's the kind of on the street attitude. And I think that's just a shame because, for example, this poem that I'm about to read, it used to go, I don't pray, I just walk out there where it's thin and aim. And the workshop told me that if I didn't put a bow in there, where it's thin with my bow and aim, it would sound like I was kissing. Now, I never, ever would have been able to know that without my classmates. So I owe that bow to them. Solar wind. I don't pray. I just walk out there where it's thin with my bow and aim. But I should have yelled. I should have changed the world. A person can die of balance, just gleam like squid and disappear. The fence around our house is soft with rain. It can't stop my arrows. It can't stop what wants to happen. The meteors I hear, power lines blowing from the mountain, or the girl somewhere who reads you, whose skin has memorized your life. Nothing stops her fingers. They swim with you at night. Leave if you're leaving. Leave plain mud. I don't know what else is on your beard. It would be mercy, God. I grow weird in the field. Okay, I may just okay, one last poem from this book. Now this is an interesting. There's this idea that there's what's called the second poem. Bridget Higgins Kelly, I guess, started this one, where there's a poem inside a poem, and our goal is to break through that top poem and get to that second poem. It's very vague. Most of these things are. But I think I understand that because this poem had been this really kind of righty, very descriptive, and it didn't capture at all what I was trying to get after, which was this kind of really basic jealous feeling. This is not my husband, but the one before, who was a photographer, and he, I don't know what it was, there were all these chemistries between people, and this was a really peculiar one because I was so insanely jealous of when he took photographs. And I guess Freud would have to figure that one out, but he would take photographs and I would be like, So here, this is very real, very autobiographical, and he pulled over the car. He wanted to take a picture of a scarecrow. I stayed in the car and I watched him go over to her. And he spent a lot of time over there, and it you know, and I tried to like describe the whole thing, and it didn't work because I was still mad when I was writing the poem. And so finally, there was this experience of like, it just cracked. I wish I could be more specific, but the poem just sort of cracked, and I just started all over, but it was still coming out of that same experience. Koan, which is the riddle. You cross a broken field. Mirror, mirror, there's a scarecrow in a dress. Sometimes I know I won't see you again. It's a bad place to get emotional, alone in the car, haze pouring through the valley. But I see you on your knees. I see everything. Her stick arms pull you to her skirt, hens seeking shelter. I hear crying. I hear crying as the only true noise. A chorus of tearing ice. The dead straw she is made of, crying. Crows caught in the sky, a duct of her odd world. In your rush to get in, you bruise the shape of your being. This window I look out of traps my breath until nothing I pound isn't part mine and black and blue inside. That just sounds really pathetic, doesn't it? But it you know, jealousy is jealousy. I mean, you know, it can be deep. Maybe that one wasn't, but it, you know, I'm very much in favor of writing with your most base kind of feelings, because they're the big ones, right? It'd be interesting to find out like what the first experience. Well, I don't know. Like the caveman's first moment of jealousy, how he experienced that, or she. Never mind. Okay, this is Isolato. This is a poem called Deer Crossing the Sea. I thought that would be appropriate. I've never seen so many deer in my life. In this poem, they're crossing the sea, but these ones probably could too. The ones you have here. Let's see, anything else to say? No, it's just kind of a dreamy sort of poem. Deer crossing the sea. Many things were like sleep, holy in the power of the forest. The deep middle, deep shiver, deep shade, from which many things ran, unawake, in search of new mountains to graze, covered in flowers, my love, I am sick, or covered in snow, pink with algae, in search of impossible light, made of water, whose sapphire waves swayed their heads. You were only a dream, as they swam out to meet it, kicking their hooves, no longer breathing, because no one or nothing can quit once the body gets wind of an Eden. The promise of nectar haunts them forever, the shore pecked out of their eyes, and there in its stead, something greater to catch, a scent that would paralyze God. This is when I wish I had a backup band or something. Stir things up. Okay, this poem will stir things up. This is my daddy poem, for those of you who've read Sylvia Plath's. There's nothing like lashing out at your father. And my father was perfectly fine. It's just that I think you have to just get it all out, right? Because he could have been bad. Might as well give it to him. Okay, I did have the pleasure of reading this once when he was in the audience. So we're all even now. Givers and takers. Father, from afar, where you, Father from afar, where you have touched her, you are not. Almost a gush as she opens up, famously loud, inhaling the sky and seminal dust and man-made fly. Almost a gush as you reel her out and drop her on a pile. One is a giver, another a taker, like a fire. Now your fingers, quickly skillful, chop her up. Can't they tell her from the captured, lying stiffly on a platter, torsos only, grilled and blackened? Wherever her mind is, with the gut stuff in the bucket, floating homeward without bone work, it's losing focus, kindling inward, winding down. Trees ripple through her severed fantail, aurora shadows flail each eye. Aren't you tickled, Father, tackler, to find her still alive? Find her bobbing like a fraction, top by bottom, multiplied, almost a gush as partial daughter loiters on the waist-high water, flirting, gurgling, words like tinsel, take me with you, I forgive you, final shimmer, final fight. I'm just really mad because he never took me fishing. He can't do anything. I mean, that's not true. I mean, he's a scholar. Okay, he wrote books. Okay, so this, I'm going to read this poem. It's called Doppelganger, I guess it's German. But it's, if you're German, that I'd have to spit. It means the double, your double, and I guess we all have one. We just haven't always met ours. But in this poem, I'm the one, no, the one, I'm not me, I'm the other. I'm my own double. Thought I loved light in the morning. Thought I loved food. Thought I saw my son running from a diamond bag. Tears in the billions. Still couldn't do it. Dream, conjecture. I am the one not shown, not pictured, not missed, just missing. Asylum. Leaves rolled up at the end of winter in somebody's bowl. Loner, setting up deadfall. Later, cassowary's girl-like screams. Couldn't save her. Wandering the copses slowly. Thought I had authority. Thought I had a stake. Didn't know me. I'm not going to cross the timeline. I won't make you suffer. This is called Meteor, and this is I still have kids, but they're bigger now. But this was written like they just boom boom. There they were, and it's terrifying. So I think I was like drinking a beer and being really selfish one night, and I locked everybody out. This is my angry. But you have to get it out. And actually, the poem, okay, it has Rome in it. There's Rome in it. So it's really appropriate. And it also has Nero in it. And, Nero is like the Roman bad guy before Mussolini, who gave you guys that statue, if you don't know about it. You have a bad guy statue in your town. Meteor. Oh, and Nero wanted to be a poet, so he made everybody kill you if you didn't go to his poetry reading. Something like that. Okay. Meteor. I chose this to be this stone, grow nothing. I wanted this absolute position in the heavens more than anything, than you, my too beautiful, my children. A man I knew once muttered in his terrors of the night, "No, no, no," instead of yelling. It was this dismal low, that made me weep. I will leave. All the butterflies the Lord above can muster, all their roses. I will leave whatever colors struggle to be noticed. To leave, that's the verb I am, have always been, always will be, heading like a dewdrop into steamy confrontation, my train of neutral green, lasting half a second before casting off its freight, his arms outside the sheet. How warm they were, like Rome the year it burned, Nero at the window, loving no one, fusion crust. I fly because my space is crossed with fear and hair and tail and hate, the bowels of a lioness, iron in her roar. I think we're talking about that at the Q&A. I think it's important to be dramatic. I mean, of course, I love my children more than, whatever I'm talking about in that poem, and I would never leave my children. And, there's these kind of things. But I think you have to, in poetry, you have to dramatize those nightmarish sentiments, I mean, all those things that, I don't know if you have disgusting dreams or not, but I think that impulse that makes your disgusting dreams, I think, that's part of you. And so I think poetry is a really good place to just let all that out. I mean, if, hopefully my children wouldn't read that poem and accuse me of, abuse or something, but I think that, I think they would be able to understand. I've gotten a lot more crass, actually, so I'm not going to read those poems. So I'm really trying to just justify being a jerk, I guess. But it's, I don't know, I'll figure it out someday. Okay, this poem I wrote in a sauna. I don't know why. I just like to go into really tight, awful spaces and stay there too long. And it was also kind of an experiment just to see what would happen when I ran out of oxygen. And there was a result, and it was that I couldn't think of new words. So it ended up turning into an echo poem because the brain just couldn't move. So that you'll see. Okay. So this poem is called Elsewhere. Did you hear? I heard that I flew. You flew at dusk like the foxes, and flew. You flew over things. What things? In there. In where? The trees. What trees? Reached up. Reached what? For me. My fur. Your fur. I heard. They pulled. Pulled what? Our love. A ruse. Was rare on earth. Like stars that fall. Like ice. And spread. Spread what? My legs. Your legs were white. Silver white. Like ice. And shook. Shook what? My heart. What heart? In truth, our love, the ruse on earth, was caught by what? By things. What things? My tongue, your tongue, was white, silver white, like leaves, and split. Split what? In two, like ghosts at dusk, like wings. They wished, not hurt, in truth, just lost, a ruse. I lived to tell, but then somebody told me there was a horror movie where the guy gets locked into the sauna and like melts or something. Whatever would happen to you. Okay. Ooh. Okay, last poem? Is it last poem time? Is it? I didn't read that one you wanted me to read. Can I just skip it? Okay. This is Isolato. It's the title poem, and I know you studied it. Okay, I'm going to try to read it with great energy, because the whole project was was that it was really boring. So the first line was really boring, and that was my challenge. So I'll try to use my, try to muster up a lot of whatever. Okay, use a lot. The ox is slow, but the earth is patient. The ox is in a war of many tears, but no engagement, like folds within a bellows that broke from the accordion. War to be alone in a shiftless wind that does not answer. War to be the only child in existence, even frozen. Be the only sound that plows the only land, and as the only one, be dumb to all remembrance of how small or strong or round it ever was. How much work there is undone. How long it's been since any form of water has come down. All thought about the whip, how sharp it is against the moving bone, all gone. The earth is patient in this war, knowing binds and chains, inflame the skin, and skin like soft terrain loosens into freedom for the thorn, and the thorn squeezing from the tissue like a devil or a leech bleeds into an almost touching song. I can burp now. No question. Go home, lady. It's okay. It's okay. Take it. I'll threaten you. I'll read another poem. I have a poem about Satan.
Okay.
When did you decide to become a poet?
When or why?
Both.
Well, it was in college, and I guess it was my sophomore year, and I took one of those creative writing classes. And I thought nothing else could possibly be exciting. And so it really started from that. That's why I'm going to defend the workshop until death. Because, I mean, it's so much what you make of it. I mean, it sounds like a total issue. It is. I mean, you just, if you don't like your workshop, it's probably because you're not creatively connected. But whatever happened there it was enough. I mean, the whole idea that that you can make all these worlds just with words, use words that we use so kind of wastefully. I mean, sometimes usefully, but I think in general they just kind of spit out all the time without much thought. And then suddenly when you're writing a poem, it's, you have to weigh them. It's weird, like you get up these little scales and you weigh them and put them together. I mean, it just goes back to that just making things, and I've always loved to make things. And then the other part, the sort of the why comes out of just always being, always wanting to escape. Even I remember just even as a child, just, wanting to build a flying saucer or just go, without any plan as to where. So that's what happened, or didn't happen. And so for me, the poems really kind of settle that impulse, because I can't build a flying saucer. I'm not smart enough to build a flying saucer. So it's really just the draw. The possibilities, I still don't feel like I've really achieved what a poem can do, and so that kind of keeps me going. I just have this belief that if you can put the right words together, like the earth will open or something. Something really big will happen, not just nothing. So I just keep going along on that page. It's not very interesting. I was enslaved in a dark space for 20 years. I scratched on the wall. It's nothing.
How long does it usually take you to write one poem, and how often do you go back and revise it?
Complicated question. In the good old days, the poems, like when I was your age-ish, if you're interested in writing, you should just write all you can now, because right now you're at this age where you're technically an adult, but you still have all that energy, right? And it just cannot be undermined. It's just a tremendous period of life, and for me, when I started writing at that age, I didn't question anything. They just happened. So it would vary from, I could write a poem in one day, or some would take a little bit longer. It just really depended, but never what's going on now. We're talking 3 years. Where and it's not that I'm not doing anything else but working on that poem for 3 years, and there's a lot going on, but it's somehow, I'm thinking too much, I'm worrying too much, I'm trying to do too much. I'm trying to make the earth open. It takes a long time. So that's changed, and I don't know if that's just another kind of, escapist thing, or if the earth doesn't open, then it's not done, so I'm not writing. But I guess that's really, it's changed. It used to just be much more dynamic, and almost anything would inspire me. And then I'm hoping for a revival. But there was the second part to your question.
How often do you go back and change?
The revision question. Okay. Yeah, that's part of what's going on now, is that maybe it's a question of over-revising, because now I go back and I go back and I go back, and then again in the old days I would just tweak a word or two and that would be fine. But now it's kind of every time I revise, it's a full-fledged revision process. So in a way I could look at it that I'm writing a new poem every time I revise, because sometimes it gets to that point. But I really am a firm believer in revision, because I think you get to bring to that poem, when you're going back to it, you get to bring everything that happened between the time you wrote it originally and then the now time. And that will just get in there, just even subconsciously. And so that will I think it will just stir things up. It sort of stirs the poem up. And I just love the way when you revisit the poem, or technically it means to kind of re-see the poem, just that, again, that incorporating that sort of changed attitude toward it just adds another dimension, I think. So sometimes these kind of poems that come out easily, even though they're maybe technically good, they tend, at least in my experience, to be pretty one-dimensional. So I love to go back and kind of layer it. I almost think of it as a visual artist kind of project. You know how they get to go in and then tear up their canvas, mutilate it. And so I like to think of that analogy, in the poems, where you go back and you make it all negative, or you go back and you make it all positive, or you cut it in half and you start at the end. And, I like that kind of dynamic involvement that you can only get if you've already written the poem, right? You can't toss around air. So yeah, I revise all the time. Neurotically, of course. Okay. Yes.
How much time was there between when you first started writing poetry and when you finally got published?
You mean in book form or just in
Book
poem form? Let's see. We can do the math. I guess I started writing in 87, 88, right around that year. And then I was first published in a chapbook in 96. But then the first full-fledged book, you know, that was mine came out in '98. So kind of a 10, 11 year gap. Which is, I guess, I don't know if that's average. I don't even know anymore. It's all wacky now. So, I guess I feel pretty happy with it based on some of the graduate students I know now. Former graduate students who are give me dirty looks. It's not happening. It's just so competitive now. But then they were saying that to me back then, so it's all relative. But I think I was one of the lucky ones in that regard. I know how it's tough. Are you worried about it?
I do it in my spare time.
You write in your spare time? Not day and night.
No. You can't when you're in college.
No, I know. Well, in the margins there.
Yeah.
Yes.
That leads to my question. Are you a disciplined writer? Do you write a certain amount every day, or how do you do your writing?
That's changed too, and I think that's with teaching. You know, I've been teaching now steadily for 5 years, full time. Prior to that time, when I was in undergrad and graduate school, I was involved in it really almost every day, and not necessarily, you know, at the desk, but I would just somehow the world was so open, and I would just be outside, and lines would come, and you know, things would start happening, and so I guess I felt like I was living my poems. Then I know that sounds really corny, but that's really actually kind of true. And then I think as my life got more structured, I had to make it a different kind of relationship. So then I had the kids, and then I'd get like 2 or 3 hours in the morning. I would have to pay for someone to come and watch the kids. So that was really almost a psychotic time, because I would have to, you know, like hand over crying baby, and then run upstairs and lock the door, and like try to read, and then I felt guilty, and then it would end, and then I'd be mad that it was over, and you know, it was really a complex kind of time. But then I treasured that time so much, and that's where the Isolato poems came out of that time. You know, Dark Sky Question, it was like, you know, all open. And then with the teaching, the third book, it's interesting how that's why I didn't read from that. It's here, but I didn't read from it. Because that becomes part of the professional relationship to poetry, which I had not been prepared for. You know, where suddenly most of my energy goes, and as I should as a teacher, I mean, it's only right, most of my energy goes into the students and into their poems. Maybe it's to a dangerous point, but that's what's going to make it, as I learn to become a sort of more sophisticated teacher, I can set up more barriers. But right now, it's still kind of, my poem is your poem, and your poem is my poem. You know, I'm just really putting a lot of energy into their work. And so now it's almost like I've eaten too much when I sit down to write. You know, it's like, so I'm trying to work that out. And so I'm disciplined in the sense that I'm thinking about poetry all the time. I'm preparing to teach it. But the actual poems themselves, I haven't quite developed the format. I revise because it's safe in that sense, you know, because something's there and I can go to it. But I don't have a system, you know. I know like Rita Dove gets up at 3 in the morning, and her husband built her a separate cottage or something. So she takes the lantern out. You know, if I could do that, I would. My husband will not build me a cottage, but I can, you know, I have to figure it out, and I think it will, when it's right, I'll figure it out. I just don't feel like I can force it right now. I think things really, there's something to be said for kind of performance period. So the discipline, I can do discipline. You know, it's in my capacity, and I've done it in the past. Right now, it's finding the space that speaks to that sense of maybe being overwhelmed by poetry as a subject. I mean, it's exciting, because I'm starting to think about, in order to do that, either I have to kind of develop a split personality, you know, where I have this, maybe it's already there, but I you know, where I have somebody who doesn't teach, you know, who sits home all day or something. And, I'm working it out. It's just not very good. I'll let you know.